Did you know that most Americans retire earlier than planned due to unexpected health issues, downsizing, job loss, whatever? This week on the podcast, we're going to talk about that. Are you ready for an unexpected retirement?
In football, the red zone is where a team has to make small adjustments to ensure victory. As you approach retirement, you also need to make small adjustments to ensure success. This is the Red Zone Retirement Program with registered investment advisor and enrolled agent John Mears of Mears Money Management.
Hey everybody, welcome into the podcast. Thanks for hanging out with Coach John Mears and myself as we talk investing, finance, and retirement here on Red Zone Retirement Program. Coach, what's going on, my friend? How are you?
Not much, doing well. We're into the holiday season here, and as you and I talked about off there, it's also getting to be the exciting part of football season for the pros and actually college guys too, which I follow.
Yeah.
So a lot of fun stuff. A lot of guys getting fired too. So
we were talking about some boneheaded decisions, some crazy decisions in my NFC North. Some stressful stuff in there, but this week we're going to talk about a stressful situation that unfortunately affects a lot of people, and this is kind of surprising. Let me set this up for folks as well as for you, Coach. So the Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies, say that 3 times fast, finds that most Americans retire earlier than expected, 60%, according to this article. That's a massive number, and we'll put a link to that in the show descriptions if people want to go check it out. With an average median age of 62. So let me first ask you, 60% of people retire earlier than expected. Does that hit you weird? Does that feel right, wrong, what?
It does feel pretty close.
Really?
I don't do a matrix here of what happens, but I've only had, I think, one client that ever worked all the way to age 70, and he loved his job. He was good at it. It paid well, and he just loved his job. Beyond that, I don't have anybody really getting past the mid 60s, and I do, fortunately, with the type of people I work with, I have several people that either retire at 60 or 61. I have a few that retire in their 50s. So so we're fortunate. But today we're talking about being forced into it beyond
right? Yeah, and I think that's the takeaway. Yeah, I think that's the takeaway, right? So up to 60% being forced into early retirement. Interesting. It's a wild number. So again, it could be a number of reasons: job loss, organizational changes, whatever the case is. So. Why do Americans retire earlier than planned outside, if we're talking about being forced, right? Outside of a health issue or a company downsize, there really isn't, right? I mean, it has to be one of those two. So are you in shape? Are you prepared for that? Should it happen? And I think most of us are not.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that there's a lot of surprise to some people. And this is why, again, this is a self-serving comment, why you should be working with an advisor. You want to be looking, and I think we're going to talk about this today, but maybe we'll just jump a little ahead on this. This is why you want to be looking for retirement anywhere from 2 to 5 years before you actually want to be retired.
Right.
I don't work with people in general that are really young and are just trying to accumulate. Now I'll do it with a couple people, but for the most part, I work with retirees only. And again, I think the sweet spot to be really truly planning is a year or two before to 5 years. And if you're doing that, you should be on the right track if something unexpected happens. People forget with health issues, it's not just your health issues, it could be your parents' health issues as well. So that's something I see every now and again is my mom is really sick. Somebody needs to care for her. I've done, I think, well enough, John. Have I? Yes. Okay. So I can kind of keep an eye on mom or whatever. That is taking a lot of time. I do see that. Okay. And then again, with unexpected job changes, I just had a client earlier this year who was about a year or so from retiring, and he walks in on a Monday. We can laugh about it now because he's going to be okay. But he walks in on Monday and he finds out, oh, by the way, the job that he had was given to the owners. I forget whether it's the niece or the nephew, but it was one of them. And so the nepotism, and he was out. He was done. I did get
he was already working with you before this happened.
Yes, he was, but he still had a panicky.
Oh, I'm sure.
Call. I mean, it was really kind of out of left field. He really had no idea. He was really kind of chugging along. We had done the Social Security analysis. We'd done this and that, and we kind of knew where we were headed. But again, it was a year or so, probably a year and a half before he was ready to do it.
Before he was planning on it.
Before we were planning to do it. And so we had to kind of make adjustments, kind of like we were talking about with football, where if something happens,
there's 30 seconds on. There was 30 seconds on this clock, right?
There's 30 seconds on the clock, or if there's a punt that you block and the guy can't recover it, and stuff like that happens.
Yeah, a punt. My brother's going to be very upset that you brought that up. So a punt gets blocked, and you don't get out of the way, and it touches you, and you give the ball right back to the other team, and they wind up beating you.
Yes. So things like that you've got to be prepared for.
So he had to pivot, right? So what did he do? He came in, talked with you, and said, "Hey, all right, we gotta cut this now a year plus short. Are we good, or do we make changes?"
So you're going to have to make some changes. If we had planned a year and a half, that's what the plan was for. So anything other than that requires you to make changes, because otherwise we would be retiring now. So if we can retire now, I do encourage my people to retire as soon as they can, as soon as the math works. Unless again you love your job, but even if you love your job, I think there's a life to live out there that you've worked very hard to achieve. So if you are able to retire, we want you to retire. So we had to make some changes. So we had to kind of take a look at the Social Security analysis initially. I usually don't do this, but we did say, go ahead, let's go ahead and take Social Security now at age 65 rather than wait until 67. So we made that kind of adjustment. And then we also had some budgetary ideas that we had, some things that we had already thrown out ahead of time, then we had to implement. And then we still haven't acted on this. We talked about doing the home equity conversion mortgage, maybe trying to buy us a little bit of leeway in there for cash flow. So far, we haven't really needed it, but we're still kind of keeping that on the back burner because this has happened earlier this year. But it's just something that we have to make some adjustments, and none of them had to be major, but they were subtle adjustments we had to make.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, I mean, thanks for sharing that story as well, kind of highlighting a case study, if you will. So I was going to say, because I was going to ask you, like, what's the biggest financial impact to retiring early, be it forced or being it by choice? To me, it would seem like there's really two places. The first one being Social Security, which you kind of touched on a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Social Security may require a little bit of a change, and again, we try to hold out on Social Security. I know there's a lot of videos on the internet about take Social Security at 62. I want to tell you, I do not agree with that. There may be an instance or two where you can do that, but it has to be part of an overall plan. But the idea that you take it at age 62 because it's your money and it's going to go away is a little bit Coach, misinformed.
Well, let's bring that down for just a quick second, since you touched on that. I mean, it might as well, right? Because a simple thought to me, and I talk to advisors like yourself every day, but you do this every day, is if you're pulling from your own assets and delaying, your Social Security. I get this conversation. People say, well, I'm pulling my own assets. I'm delaying Social Security so that money gets bigger, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. That's fine. That makes sense. But you can't leave Social Security to an heir, right? Mm-hmm. So do you have to take that into consideration, saying, well, maybe if I do turn it on earlier because I need the money, right? Whether I'm pulling from my own accounts or I'm pulling from Social Security, at least then you can leave, if there's something left behind in your own accounts, you're leaving that to an heir. So I get that argument, which is maybe why some of those internet videos exist.
Yes. Well, the ones I see on the internet, they just kind of go, "Hey, it's your money. Get it."
Oh, well, okay, yeah, okay, all right. I'm trying to be all like philosophical about it, but
yeah. Well, but in the instance with this particular client, it was kind of interesting because he does not have longevity in his family, and so one of the reasons why you want to delay Social Security is because of longevity risk, and that it means whether you're going to live too long, obviously, which is a nice problem to have, but that is a issue. But he does not have longevity in his family. So going from 67 to 65, the other issue isn't just Social Security, but also the health insurance or your health care. And that's the big one. He was at 65, so he could go ahead and take Medicare. And that was there was an opportunity that kind of was laid out there where he had to kind of, again, reroute real quickly, get to Medicare. It was there for him. Don't know how we would have done it if he was 63. What we would have done, we would have had to, again, formulate yet another plan here.
Right.
But he was able to get Medicare. And then also go ahead this is something that all advisors have to be aware of with their clients. This guy is not super sophisticated. He's done well. He's worked hard, but it was also going to be a little bit of a problem if we start saying draw from bucket A and bucket B. So we just kind of said, okay, let's take Social Security along with this, along with this, along with this, and we're just going to live happily ever after.
Keep it simple. Nothing wrong with that.
Yep. That's what we had to do with them.
Yeah, I'm glad you did touch on the healthcare one, because whether you retire early because you want to or because you're forced to, and again, the topic this week is being forced to, that's a big one that winds up smacking the pajeepus out of you and causing you to fumble, right? Is the healthcare coverage issue. So certainly want to take care of that and look at some things. So that brings us really to, well, how can you prepare then, Coach, for the unexpected, right? I mean, if it's unexpected, it's unexpected, right? So, and I think it always starts with the question of, and you kind of touched on it a minute ago, when do I get started, right? Mm-hmm. Like, when do I get started planning? Well, you get started before there's a problem, hopefully. Mm-hmm. And then if a problem like this gentleman you were just talking about shows up, maybe it's not as bad, or maybe it's not a major gear shift to make it work.
Absolutely. Your plan is your plan. So I don't think you really plan on something coming completely out of the blue. I know we like to think we are, but we don't. We have to have within our plan the ability to maneuver. And I think that's the job of the advisor, to kind of know ahead of time, if A happens, we're going to go to B. And I've been doing this long enough where you can kind of throw anything at me and I'm like, okay, this is how we need to reroute. I don't think you get too deep into those weeds ahead of time with clients, because you're going to confuse them. So we have our plan. We can kind of say at the edge how we want to handle, certain issues that may pop up. But I know that we want to make sure that the plan is in place. And then the plan, just like Mike Tyson says, is only as good until you get punched in the mouth. And we have to be ready to be able to adapt. And so whenever we have these nice big books of plans, and I know a lot of advisors out there give the thick 60-page manual, I give out a 1-page plan. It's a synopsis. It just shows us on 1 page, this is what we're trying to get to. And on there, it has your to-do list, both now and in the future. Well, right now, if something happens, those future plans just got elevated up into current right now. But we do have them on there. Okay. So we do have an idea of what we're going to be doing now and in the future. When you kind of get punched in the nose, we have to move those up. And that's really what we have to do.
So what are some steps to getting on prepare for the unexpected? So if you're still working, right, are you maxing out your retirement accounts? Is that part, and I know every plan is different. I'm just kind of giving some action steps for people, right? Maxing out the retirement accounts. Is that one?
Yeah. Well, certainly. And I'm going to say this because it's all crazy here, but it all depends. But that is one of the things you're trying to do as you're approaching retirement, is you're trying to turbocharge your retirement, ideally. Yeah. Whether it be a traditional or Roth type plan, doing your mega Roth, whatever, you're trying to put as much away as you can. That's certainly the main thing. But again, having a plan, having something in writing is so important, because you can always refer to that and kind of say, okay, this is what our goals were. Again, that's on my sheet that I give my clients every spring. They have it there. These are what the goals were. And these are what, again, the current action items, the future action items, they're right there on a page there. So yes, we want to be able to max our retirements. We want to make sure that we're doing all the things we're supposed to be doing in our financial planning world, which is with your life
insurance.
Shore
up the emergency fund.
Yes, your insurance, your emergency funds, whatever that level of emergency fund could be, whether it be 3 months, 6 months, whatever you need to have access to. Yeah. But yeah, you again, it's all in your written plan what you want to have. And so that way, when something does pop up, you're not having to panic. You're having to go, oh, again, by the way, that thing we're going to wait to do for 3 or 4 more years, we have to accelerate that and do it right now. But there's so much that goes into financial plan. Again, with insurance, with your even with your liability insurance, your portfolio, we have to adjust your portfolio as well. We're waiting to this point to go to a more conservative 60-40 portfolio. Now we may have to do that sooner than we wanted to. And again, that changes the math, and that may change also what your withdrawal rate may be. Instead of taking out, $2,300 a month and maybe $2,200 a month. There's just little things that go into this.
Little tweaks, right? That can maybe get you across the finish line. Back to this guy's point, or this guy's case that you were dealing with. It was a year and a half or so before he was planning on retiring. You made some adjustments. So I'm assuming he just went ahead and didn't get a new job. He just went ahead and jumped in.
That was one of the things we talked about. Did he want to work? And he said no. He didn't want to go ahead and try and chase that.
So if we can make it happen, let's make the adjustments and make it happen.
And one of the things was budgetarily, and we kind of looked over the budget briefly. Again, they're not real budget people, but we kind of said there was a couple things in there, minor tweaks. And that's what's kind of funny about all this when it comes to financial planning. Sometimes it's not usually an overhaul. Usually it's a tweak here and a tweak there. But again, I like to have it in writing. Maybe I'm a nerd by that, but I like to have it in writing that you can actually look at and say, okay, this is what we've talked about, so that there's again no panic.
Well, isn't that the same in coaching though, right? I mean, a lot of times it's minor tweaks. You don't come up with an entirely new game plan from team to team to team. You probably just minorly tweak your plays, right?
Yes, you do know how to adjust. I think so. Yeah, in the game of football, there are certain things we do have written down. So I'll have this. Sometimes I don't even explain this all to the entire team, but I know what plays I'm going to call on the goal line. I know what play I'm going to go for a 2-point conversion. I know what plays I want to run in the last minute. I know what they are. We do practice those kinds of things in those kinds of situations, obviously, but you can't go over every single situation in a football game. Bill Belichick said this a long time ago. There's just an infinite number of permutations you can have in a football game. You can't practice all of them. There's just no way.
Just like life.
Financial planning. So, yeah.
John has a couple of free books, Diffuse and Tax-Free Retirement in California, that reveal exactly how you can experience zero taxes in retirement and overcome the IRS lien on your 401k, IRA, and 403b, which could threaten your future lifestyle. These are complimentary, so all you have to do to pick these up 100% free is just stop by rescuemyretirement.net. That's rescuemyretirement.net. Fill in the basic info and he'll ship those out to you immediately. That's rescuemyretirement.net for a copy of Diffuse and Tax-Free Retirement in California.
Yeah. All right. Well, so interesting enough, we'll finish up this with this piece here on this this article from this Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies. Despite the challenges, despite the financial challenges, 9 out of 10 retirees describe themselves as generally happy. That's pretty encouraging, right? So even if you go into retirement earlier than expected, I think to me that shows the adaptability of most people. I'll use my mom. I do all the time. She's on Social Security only. Not what she wanted to be in life, not where she wanted to be as a senior, but she's adapted. She's making it work. Would she have loved to have a different retirement? Yes, but she's made it work, right?
Right.
So I think that's kind of a testament to this as well.
Yes. Yeah. People are very adaptable. And that's something you and I were talking about off the air, was that statistically speaking, people actually, their budgets actually go down the further they get into retirement. And so people are adaptable and they're more comfortable with what they're spending, and they are content in their world with, again, as long as they have the ability to adapt. But those are the things that people are generally content, and they're happy as they go along in life. So that is good news. And I found that refreshing to see that, because I see that in my practice. I do believe that. It's nice to see that actually in an article. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like I said, we'll put a link into the show notes, this description of the show notes this weekend, down below where we put the stuff on YouTube and Spotify and all that good jazz. So if you got some questions, need some help, reach out to John, of course, as always. Get yourself some time onto his calendar, and you can do so simply at mearsmoney.com. Again, we'll have links for all the stuff in the descriptions below, mearsmoney.com, or go to bookachatwithjohn.net. Either way you want to go, make sure you're reaching out to him, have a conversation for yourself about, because what's the downside here? The downside is if you start to get prepared for an unexpected early retirement and it doesn't happen, you're still ready for retirement, right? So, there's no downside.
Yeah, there isn't.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Coach, thanks for hanging out and breaking it down. We'll see you next time. We'll do another episode. Yeah, we'll do another episode this month, right after, I think, the holiday. We'll probably drop it. So we'll be back next time here on Red Zone Retirement Program, Simple Investing, Smart Future with Coach John Mears.
Advisory services offered through Mears Money Management, Inc., an RIA registered in the states of California and Texas. California Department of Insurance License number 0685203.